Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. I've got problems with my headphones today. I don't think I can hear myself properly, but anyway. I hope you're well. Now, I've had a very interesting email from a listener, and I just want to say at the beginning that there's a limited amount of information that I can share with you, because even though this person is related to the incidents, I don't have direct permission from the direct relatives. Okay, so we're going to be talking about an event. I'm going to have to sort of blur around it because I don't want people to know what it actually relates to, because I do not have permission from the direct relatives. Anyway, so we've got an event chart, and this is what Wendy, so we're going to call her Wendy, so thank you very much, Wendy, for sending in the info. We've got an event chart for a tragic event that happened in 2025. Now, I'm not going to share the exact date or the month, but if you want to reverse engineer the chart, you can do that. But just take as fact the information I'm sharing with you for the event is correct. So a tragic event happened, and it involved a drowning, and the person who drowned was in the process of saving the lives of some other people. So it was quite, they were very courageous in saving the lives of other people, but unfortunately they themselves drowned. So the event chart itself is what we're going to look at first, and I'm going to read you a little bit of Wendy's email. Can't give you everything because I'm trying to make this as confidential as possible, and I hope I manage it. So Wendy's emailed and told me that this sad event happened within the family and it involved a drowning. However, what was interesting, well, not how, I don't want to say however, in addition to that, because she's very interested in astrology, she wanted to talk about the significance of the astrology, not the tragedy of the event. So we have discussed that. There's been some emails backwards and forwards, and the event is very tragic. So we have to take that into account. And because it involved somebody, not only they themselves died in the water, but they saved the life of other people. I believe it's other people, plural. Yeah, so not only did they themselves die, but they managed to save the lives of numbers of other people. And the person who died was also in the water with someone else that had rushed to help. So there were two of them involved in their life-saving, and one of the two of them has died, who is a relation to Wendy, who has emailed me. So she says the relative died in a drowning incident on the certain date, but on the same day his grandmother also passed away. What makes it so striking, so I'm quoting from Maria now, what makes it so striking is that X was their favourite grandchild. The fact that they both left on the same day feels deeply synchronistic, almost like a family threshold or shared crossing. We do not have the exact times of death for either of them, so the angles and houses cannot be used with certainty, but even using the date itself, the sky seems meaningful. That day, Saturn and Neptune were both in the very early degrees of Aries, close to the late Pisces fixed star, and I don't know how you pronounce it, it's Scheat, Scheat, which I understand is traditionally associated with water, danger, drowning, misfortune and threshold events. That immediately stood out to me because X died in the ocean. There was also strong nodal symbolism with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node of Virgo and Mars in Virgo near the South Node. To me, that suggested a fated or karmic release pattern, especially with the Pisces-Virgo axis involved, body and spirit, service and surrender, life and dissolution. So of the date of the event, The sun was in Cancer, which made the family ancestral symbolism feel even stronger. Cancer, lineage, grandmother, grandson, emotional bonds, and then 2 family members passing under the same sky on the same date. And then she says, I have heard astrologers refer to death windows, meaning clusters of transits, nodal contacts, fixed star activations, or symbolic thresholds that seem to coincide with endings or crossings. I wondered whether you'd ever worked with anything like that, especially in cases where 2 closely bonded family members passed on the same day. I realise astrology cannot prove anything literally, but symbolically this felt extraordinary to me, especially with the drowning symbolism and the family connection. So yes, it is. So it's taken me, unfortunately, it's taken me about a week to get round to making the charts that I can understand, because they very kindly shared some charts with me. But it's one of those things, I've been doing astrology so long on astro.com, I can't sort of twig a chart unless I'm looking at the sort of pictures, I suppose it is, the illustrations of how, inverted commas, I look at things. Not to say that I can't read a chart, there's another program or another colour or whatever, but I do find it more difficult. And anyway, I've got Mercury retrograde, so that's my excuse. Now, to tell you the truth, I'd never heard of this Shiat fixed star. I will put a link to Deborah Holding's Sky Script astrology website, and I'll put a link to that because on there she talks about the drowning of the poet Shelley, and that particular fixed star was significant positions in his chart, etc., etc. So if you want to read up more about that fixed star, I've had a difficulty just remembering the flipping 10 planets, but it is associated with that, and it is associated with that in the, you'll see as we do Synastry as we go in a bit further with this particular event. So here we have the event chart, and for a sign of the zodiac for an event chart, to have Scorpio rising means that it's going to be deep and meaningful. It's not light and fluffy, because we're going to be comparing a passing that is light and fluffy, but this isn't. As an event chart, if you've got Scorpio rising, and it's a decent enough degree, it's 22 degrees, so it's not too late or too early to indicate anything. But Scorpio is the deep sign of the zodiac, ruled by Pluto and Mars. Mars is in using equals. Mars is up in the 10th. Pluto is in the 3rd. Pluto is retrograde. This did hit the news lines, so this did. It was an event that ended up in the news, so it wasn't a small event. It was covered quite considerably. So you got Pluto in the third's communications and stuff, but sad, a terribly sad thing. The transiting moon is in the sign of Aquarius in the 4th. The north node is in Pisces, as Wendy says, also in the 4th. The Shiat fixed star is 29 degrees. And you know how much I hate the 29 degrees is 29 degrees in Pisces as being a, inverted commas, bad thing. And I really struggle with making pronouncements that because something is a number, it's therefore a difficult thing. But hey, I have done a whole podcast on it. But at this event, the Shiat fixed star was 29 degrees Pisces in 44 minutes. Saturn is, yes, as Wendy says, conjunct Neptune in the 5th. 5th is creativity, romance, etc. And I think, yeah, the Shiati chappy, he's in there. But the North Node of Pisces is in the 4th. Chiron, the wounded healer, was in the 6th. Uranus, now I also thought what was interesting is that Uranus is 0 degrees into Gemini. So the year that this happened, which was last year, 2025, Uranus had just gone into Gemini and it's 0 degrees. So we all know that when Uranus is in any sign, there's going to be sudden things that are happening. So this is completely unexpected. The people involved reacted to the circumstances immediately. Nobody was sitting there going, oh, it's just a good idea. It was an event that was sudden. Okay. Venus is in Gemini as well, and that's the 7th. 7th is close personal relationships, etc. The sun is in the 8th, sex, birth, death, reincarnation, and Jupiter's there as well. And Mercury is 14 degrees into Leo. We'll see the significance of that in a minute. And Mars is 15 degrees Virgo in the 10th. So it's pretty much a one-sided chart, but Scorpio's rising, and we're not going to have fluffy stuff when Scorpio rises. And it is a water sign, and the sun is in a water sign, and the moon isn't, but when we look at the person involved, the moon is. Now, the next chart we're going to look at is the person involved, the person who very sadly drowned. Because I don't have a birth time, I'm doing the synastry round the other way. So in the centre, I've got the event chart. So this drowning happened, and then this is the person's planets that I've put around the outside. I mean, I'm doing it that way because I don't have an exact time for the person. But what I thought was interesting is that the MC of the event chart is 0 degrees Virgo. The person concerned, who tragically died, is 28 degrees Leo. So that's an out of sign, but it's a conjunction. So the sun is high in their chart. So their chart, if we superimpose their chart onto this event chart, the sun is high in the sky. And they are a sun sign Leo. And the event has Mercury 14 degrees Leo. The natal chart of the person concerned, their Mercury is 13 and 26 minutes. So that's a super conjunction. So the person who tragically drowned, their Mercury is exactly the same degree as the moment that they're lost. They themselves have, so this is the person who unfortunately drowned, they themselves have got their moon 19 degrees or thereabouts, because I don't know about the time, I've done 6 a.m. Moon is 19 degrees or thereabouts into the sign of Pisces, and Jupiter is exactly conjunct to the moon, so Jupiter's the lucky fluffy planet, and it's retrograde. And on the date that they unfortunately drowned, the north node, the transiting north node, is 19 degrees Pisces. So we've got, as Wendy says, a truly fateful event. Was it meant to be? That I don't know the answer to that one. But astrologically, it's a super conjunction. What was the other thing? Yes, so the event chart has Chiron 27 degrees Aries. The person who drowned has their north node, their natal north node, so that won't change too much time-wise, is 22 degrees Aries. So we've got Chiron, the wounded healer, north node of the person involved. Were they fated for this to happen? Again, don't ask me. Do I believe in fate? Some things I do. But yeah, we could be arguing about this for ages. Now, natally, so we're looking at the event chart. What is the ruler to the event? The event chart starts in Scorpio. What's the ruler to that? Pluto. The person who dies, their natal Pluto is in Scorpio. So Pluto, deep change, transformation. And in the event chart, their planet, because I've done it the other way around, their planets from the outside, their Pluto is in the 12th house of the event chart. And if we're going to look at watery things, that's the 12th. So those are the things that I was looking at. They might not be the same as what Wendy has been looking at, but I wanted to make sense of this in my way of looking at things. So that's how I've read that. Yeah, so I'll put these charts up so you can see them. I have taken out every form of identification for the people concerned. Now, on that same day that unfortunately the rescuer drowned, their grandmother also died exactly 12 hours prior. So let's have a look at grandma and the relative. Okay, so this is grandma and their grandchild. What is the relationships between them? So again, we don't have any times of birth, but this child was apparently grandma's favourite grandchild. And so why were they favourite? So grandma was a Gemini. She had Sun in Gemini, Moon in Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, Venus in Gemini, and Mars in Gemini. She had an abundance of Gemini planets. She also had Chiron at 17 degrees into the sign of Gemini. Now, with the chart that I've created for this synastry between the two of them, I have used whole sign because I don't have times of birth for either of them. And grandma, who I've put on the inside, has Jupiter retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. Grandchild has Uranus retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. So both of them have got outer-ish planets in the sign of Saggy, and grandma's got her Jupiter in Saggy, very happy there, but retrograde. And then grandchild has Uranus 18 degrees. Grandma has got Jupiter 18 degrees. They're well and truly sandwiched together. They're exact. And sudden things and faith and belief together. Grandma's north node is 3 degrees Capricorn. Grandchild's Neptune, because as Wendy quite rightly points out, there's a lot of Neptune things going on here. Grandchild's Neptune is 3 degrees retrograde into the sign of Capricorn. So we've got a massive conjunction there. And then the other thing, if I was looking at past lives, we've got grandma's Saturn is 22 degrees Pisces. Grandchild's Moon is 19 degrees Pisces, and Jupiter is 20 degrees retrograde into Pisces. So we could say that grandma was grandfather in a previous life and the grandchild was the daughter, so that probably was some parenting things going on there. But we got a cluster. We got 3 things in the sign of Pisces of very, very, very close degrees. Couldn't dream this one up. Okay, so that's the synastry chart. And then when I put the 2 charts together, the pair of them cover every sign of the zodiac. So they've got everything that, we look at, and I'm including north nodes and Chiron into this analysis. The 2 of them together in their synastry chart cover every sign of the zodiac except for Aquarius. Now in the event chart, if I take you back to that, Pluto is retrograde into the sign of Aquarius. Pluto is the ruling planet to the event chart in modern astrology. And it's 2 degrees Aquarius. So it's almost as if Pluto was the thing that joined their 2 charts tragically, because they both died on the same day. Now, Wendy's point of view is that, so that's the synastry chart between grandma and the grandchild, yeah? Now, she says here, so this is about grandma, okay? So grandma had been lingering for days without food or fluids, and the family genuinely could not understand why she was still hanging on. She was expected to pass at any time, which made it feel almost as though she had somehow held on until that particular day. So we could ask the rhetorical question, a similar thing happened in my family actually. Did grandma wait to die early in the morning of the day because she didn't want to, inverted commas, be alive and then get told the news that her favourite grandchild had died? I don't know, but that's a question that I'd be asking the universe. In my family, I had a relative die, and one relative had said they couldn't live without the other one, and then the other one died first, and the second one died soon afterwards, because this, my sister I'm talking about now, she said, we'd asked her once, what happens when mum dies, and she said, well, I'll die too. And she very much did die. She died a couple of days after my mum's birthday. So weird things like that do happen. But you could sort of ask the question, did grandma want to pass first because she didn't want to, she didn't want to hear the news about her grandchild dying? Maybe she wanted to get up to heaven first. I don't know, we could make loads of stories up, but that's something that ran through my mind. So I've got grandma's passing. I have the time that she passed. So we know that she died at 4 o'clock in the morning. So with the next chart I'm doing, I've done it Synastry wise because you can't do times with a transit chart on astro.com to be able to do the specific times of something. So then you create a Synastry chart. So you do your person's birth data, then you create a chart for the event of them dying, superimpose the two of them as a Synastry chart, and then dump. So I've used 6 a.m. for Grandma. I'm using whole sign. We know that she passed at 4 a.m. in the morning. And she was, so this is Grandma now, was a Gemini. And she passed when the ascendant of the event of her dying was 24 degrees into the sign of Gemini. Her sun sign is Gemini, 27 degrees. So she died just as the ascending sign was in the sign of the zodiac that she is. And equally, Venus was there as well. So Venus was on the ascendant at the moment she died. It's not exactly conjuncting her natal Venus, because her natal Venus is 24 degrees, but event of her dying, transiting Venus, is 21 degrees. So she dies with transiting Venus, part of her stellium. I'm talking gibberish now. And transiting Uranus is 0 degrees. So she doesn't die suddenly because she's been taken a while to do it. Apparently, she's taking her time, fair enough. But she passes when the ascendant is exactly the same sign as her stellium of Gemini planets: Sun, Venus, Mars, Moon, Mercury, Chiron, Dumph, and she passes. Okay. I haven't got anybody's MCs, but the event of her passing, the event chart, the MC is Pisces. Remember, of course, that the grandchild has Pisces planets, has Moon in Pisces. So when she passes, she's got ascendant Gemini and she's a Gemini. So that actually astrologically is quite nice to pass to the other side with whatever sign of the zodiac you are, for the rising sign to be the same sign, because she's not dying in the same month that she's born. Okay, so that's as much as I want to say about Grandma's passing, but she's like zillions of planets in Gemini. Oh, sorry, and I forgot to mention that Grandma and grandchild both have Chiron in Gemini. So what's the chances of that? Grandma has Chiron 17 degrees, grandchild has Chiron also Gemini, but 20 degrees, so only 3 degrees apart. And on the date that the pair of them die, Uranus has just literally 0 degrees in however many minutes gone into the sign of Gemini. So yes, Wendy, I definitely agree with you that there was, is this fated? I don't know. You can't sort of predict a thing like that. Just sometimes things happen, and then when you look back after things, oh, that was what was going on for this event. What was the connections between the two? And I completely agree with you. There's some amazing, and I don't use, when I use the word amazing, I'm not saying that someone's passing is amazing, but we're just looking astrology wise. There was a lot of astrological connections. So I could perfectly understand. If I was Grandma, I wouldn't want to hear the news that I'd lost, because you don't expect lost a child, grandchild. You, as an adult, you don't ever want to have your children die before you. It's super tragic when it happens. I have worked with numbers of people where that has occurred, because you sort of expect your children to outlive you, and then to lose a grandchild when you're a granny would have been super tragic. So I perfectly understand Grandma wanting to pass over, but exactly 12 hours. So she dies 4 a.m. and unfortunately grandchild dies at 4 p.m. So there's that little bit about the fixed star chart. I say I don't use fixed stars. I haven't got enough brain power to do it. Thank you very much, Wendy, for sharing this information with me so that I can share it with the listeners today. So I hope you found that interesting. Now, just changing the subject slightly, I've got 2 people booked in for the next 2 episodes. We've got Jasmina, she's coming on and she's going to be talking to us about the question that I raised the other week when I was covering the void of course moon, because I don't fully understand it. Okay, so I did the episode just as much as I could read and learn out of books. So Jasmine is going to talk us through properly how to do the void of course moon. Yay! And we've also got a special guest as well. Vanessa Montgomery is going to be coming onto the show, and she's going to be talking about her experience of astrology and being a professional astrologist. So we've got 2 super episodes coming up. Thank you very much, Wendy, for sharing the information with us today. And I'm really sorry to hear about this tragic accident. It must have left the rest of the family and all of the family particularly upset and bereft. It's a sad, sad thing. So I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. If you've got anything you'd like to discuss on the podcast, do ping me an email, but it now won't be I won't be able to broadcast it for at least 3 weeks into the future, but that's fine. But if you've got any queries, do send me an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.